This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. 1-800-610-7035 is worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is John Brandenburg, and John is a senior propulsion scientist at Orbital Technologies, Inc., after being a researcher at Florida Space Institute, having come there from the Aerospace Corporation, where one of his duties was as principal investigator of the MET, and that's Microwave Electrical Thermal Propulsion Project. He also performed an architecture study for a human Mars mission using solar electric propulsion. Let me see now. He also performed research on fusion propulsion. And before coming to the Aerospace Corporation, Dr. Brandenburg was a researcher at the Research Support Instruments, which is RSI, where he specialized in making controlled plasmas for uses ranging from fusion energy research to the MET thruster. John has written 4 books: Dead Mars, Dying Earth on Global Warming and Energy Problems with Monica Ricks Paxton, which won, by the way, the 2000 Silver Ben Franklin Award for Best Environmental or Science Book. 2 sci-fi novels, Asteroid 2012, and its sequel, Morningstar Press, The Collapse of the UFO Cover-Up. Joining me now is Dr. John Brandenburg. And John, always great having you with us here in the X-Zone.
Rob, really great to be on your show again.
John, you've got some breaking news concerning Mars that is going to stun a lot of people.
Yes, we've discovered very strong evidence. There was a massive planetary-wide nuclear explosion on Mars that filled its atmosphere with strange radioisotopes, irradiated its surface with neutrons, and covered the entire planet with radioactive debris in a thin layer. And we've offered the hypothesis that this was a natural event caused by a natural nuclear reactor. In Africa on Earth, there were natural nuclear reactors. They were very small, though, and they ran stably for millions of years. This one on Mars would have had to have been much larger and then went unstable and exploded, or as they say, explosively disassemble. And this is a fine hypothesis. Unfortunately, it would have left a very large crater at the site of this natural nuclear reactor, and there's no crater. There's just a broad, shallow depression, and that makes the whole hypothesis seriously deficient. What it looks like what actually happened was the nuclear burst was in midair, an air burst, something like the Tasunga event in Siberia that, of course, devastated almost 1 million miles of Siberian wilderness. But there's no evidence that the Zunga event was nuclear. By all evidence, it was just a natural, it was a large body entering the Earth's atmosphere that broke up in midair.
John, you and
So
I
we
have to
have
take
a real mystery on Mars. We have a 1 million megaton hydrogen bomb equivalent explosion on Mars.
John, stand by. You and I have to
devastated
take a
the planet.
commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Excellent
Sure.
Nation, Dr. John Brandenburg is our special guest. And you can find out more about John as well as buy his great books at adventuresunlimited.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Don't go.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
X-Zone Nation, Dr. John Brandenburg is our special guest, and we're talking about a surprising development that Dr. Brandenburg is bringing to us here in the X-Zone. Apparently, there was a massive nuclear explosion on Mars. Now, according to Dr. Brandenburg, it seems to be a natural phenomenon. And John, how do we differentiate between the fact of a natural phenomenon or an actual nuclear explosion set off by means other than natural?
Yes. Well, there will be characteristics of, we set off a lot of nuclear weapons on Earth, and so we know a lot about the the nuclear residues from such explosions. One of the things that's produced in large quantities in a nuclear weapon is xenon-129. And since 1945, there's been a change in the Earth's xenon. Xenon is present in the Earth's atmosphere. Of course, they use it in flash bulbs. But it's present in the Earth's atmosphere naturally, and it has several stable isotopes. But xenon-129, if you look at what is different in the Earth's atmosphere since 1945, is there's been a large rise in xenon-129. And so this is characteristic of a nuclear explosion and involving the fission of uranium or thorium. So when you go up to Mars, it turns out almost the entire Martian atmosphere xenon is xenon-129. So it's quite unnatural. And that's the first clue that something tremendously destructive happened there that was nuclear. The other big evidence is that there's a radioactive hotspot on Mars with radiating rays of, indicating the shock wave went outward from that point, and then the kind of striations of the debris pattern go wrap all the way around the planet to the what's called the antipode on the opposite side of the planet, and there's a pile of radioactive debris there. So this was an explosion at one point on the planet, apparently, that devastated the entire planet and irradiated the ground zero to such a degree that it's still radioactive.
Do we have any idea when this nuclear explosion actually took place, John?
The best estimate we have is probably about 200 million years ago, based on the fact that some of the Mars meteorites that date to that time appear to have been irradiated with neutrons. And they have a particular isotope called krypton-40, or krypton-80 rather, in them that is hyperabundant, and it is created when you irradiate the rocks with neutrons as from a nuclear explosion. So we have, and those rocks can be radiometrically dated by other means to roughly 180 million years ago, or 200 million years ago.
If there is a manned space program to Mars, will this radiation affect our astronauts?
No, it has died in the 200 million years since it occurred. The radiation has died down, so it's really not much. It's only a few percent above background, and you'd have to go to the very center of this area to really be in any danger. It's a good place to send a rover, though.
I would imagine.
And in fact, I'm urging people that this must be investigated. We can't. We've offered the hypothesis that this was a natural occurrence, but some of the facts are simply not consistent with that, and so we can't really rule out anything at this point.
What is
including the fact that this was a hydrogen bomb as large as the Empire State Building, with a uranium-thorium casing that was detonated in midair over Mars for who knows what purpose.
Now, if this was a natural phenomenon, would it have exploded in midair?
That is the most difficult part of the facts appear to be consistent with a midair explosion. The simplest hypothesis, and as you know, scientists always try to offer the simplest hypothesis first, and then the simplest hypothesis was a natural nuclear reactor, which have to be in the ground, and if that had blown up with this violence, the violence that of equivalent of a million megaton hydrogen bomb explosion, it would have left a deep, wide crater. Instead, there's just a broad, shallow depression, indicating that it went off in midair. So the natural nuclear reactor hypothesis, it has a major flaw in it, and it seemed at the time when we first formulated it that it would match most of the facts, and we decided to worry about the crater later. But now that we've studied cratering from such explosions, it's really quite inconsistent. In Siberia, in roughly 1900, something like 1905, a large body entered the Earth's atmosphere and exploded in midair and created a broad, shallow. It didn't create a crater. It created it just flattened all the forest for about 10 miles around in Siberia, roughly almost 1 million square miles of forest, and so that was a comparable kind of event, a midair explosion of some body entering the atmosphere from outside, from the asteroid belt. However, there's no evidence that I've ever seen that this was a nuclear explosion in Siberia. So we have kind of something that looks like this that happened, but it was not nuclear. And this thing on Mars was a tremendous nuclear explosion. And one of the reasons I wrote the book and gave it the title Life and Death on Mars is I'm not just talking about mass death on Mars as a result of climate change and events like this, but I'm talking about our own life and death. We live in a universe that may have forces in it that are quite hostile to human life. Mars appears to have been a living planet and then got hit by a large asteroid similar to the size that destroyed the dinosaurs. And then this event apparently happened afterwards, after that had occurred. The timeline appears Mars collapsed, climate collapsed 500 million years ago, and then this event happened about 300 million years later. So Mars was very accident prone. Let me put it that way.
Is it possible?
But what's that?
Is it possible, John, that there was actually life on Mars prior to this nuclear explosion, and that it was the nuclear explosion that destroyed all living life on Mars?
It's almost as if somebody wanted to wipe out all life on Mars and was not satisfied with the initial
results
asteroid impact and decided to polish off whatever was left with a radioactive explosion that would kill everything but the most primitive life. It's almost as if that occurred. So even though one likes to look for the simplest hypothesis
right.
as a scientist, one is constantly feeling that intellectual honesty requires us to consider that this may not have been a natural event. It's very hard to explain as a natural event at this point. The evidence of the nuclear explosion is absolutely clear-cut at this point, and is all detailed in the book Life and Death on Mars, the maps showing the radioactive spot and the isotopes, etc.
What is the significance of this find in amongst the scientific community?
Well, it's an occasion for a kind of shock and awe right now. I think that a lot of people have suspected this for a long time, but they have kept quiet about it because of its implications. Mm-hmm. But we've arrived just like there was a time in Egypt when they decided they were just tired of the old regime. They wanted true democracy. I think the time has come to just talk about this. It was kind of unspeakable before. Now we're going to talk about it. And the evidence is quite clear. And I have discussed this with experts on nuclear weapons effects, and they agree that this is exactly what it looks like. It looks like
John,
yes?
Is this part of the same conspiracy, the same cover-up that is shrouding the UFO community right now?
Well, let us hypothesize.
Okay.
Let's make the hypothesize that there is a UFO cover-up,
mm-hmm.
that the government knows we're not alone, and in fact is quite aware that we are confronting living civilizations, technological civilizations. And so that is in the background. And that means just about any sign of extraterrestrial life or intelligence makes the government very nervous, because it's trying to protect the public or it's trying to continue the UFO cover-up. If they find, for instance, evidence of intelligent activity, especially use of nuclear weapons on Mars, then this weakens their ability to continue the UFO cover-up. If they find a dead civilization on Mars, even if it was primitive, then this weakens the UFO cover-up. To their credit, the U.S. government advanced the evidence that there was microbial life on Mars. And I believe that evidence is quite solid.
John, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour.
Sure.
Dr. John Brandenburg is my special guest. His books are available by simply going to Amazon.com and searching for his name, Dr. John Brandenburg. The good doctor and I will return on the other side of this commercial break after the news as the X-Zone continues from our studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Once again, our toll-free number is 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our websites, www.xzoneradiotv.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back, everyone. My guest this hour is Dr. John Brandenburg. We're talking about Mars, a startling discovery. Dr. Brandenburg is telling us of the possibility of a mid-air nuclear explosion on Mars thousands of years ago. And we've been talking about the significance of this find and how it relates to the alleged UFO cover-up conspiracy that governments of the world have been perpetrating on the citizens. And John, what do you think the number one reason for the cover-up is? Is it because they don't want to cause panic, or is there another reason?
My own analysis, and I wrote a science fiction novel about the collapse of the UFO cover-up, kind of in a almost people's revolution like happened in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And what they ended up concealing from the public was the fact that the rest of the cosmos was just as screwed up and pathologically disturbed as this planet was. And they basically, that's ultimately what the truth they were trying to keep from the public, was that that the cosmos was a rather harsh, hostile place. And and also that they had tried to enter an agreement with one group of aliens, and that had not gone well. Remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
I sure do.
And that was basically a love fest at the end between, and I remember this was in the middle of the Cold War, and in utter secrecy, it was a depiction of the U.S. government having this completely secret meeting with these aliens at this mesa. And if you watch that movie, which was in 1975, and then in the backstory we heard was that this actually represented an historical event that had occurred a couple of years earlier, and the U.S. government was so pleased with its little friends from outer space. For one thing, they'd assured us they were staunch anti-communists. And then the story, according to John Lear's Secret History, is that things went very badly in this arrangement, and what happened then is something like, if you want to get the idea of how the government reacted, was watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind and then pop a disc of Alien, the original movie, into your your DVD machine or Blu-ray or whatever. Watch those movies back to back, and you'll get an idea of how the U.S. government felt it had been treated by this secret treaty with the aliens from outer space.
But John, with organizations like WikiLeaks out there and other whistleblowers, if there in fact was a government alien UFO conspiracy. Wouldn't these documents have already been released and made public?
Well, there's rumors that WikiLeaks has more documents than that relate to this matter. However, you must also remember that the WikiLeaks, almost everything, the dirty laundry it found, they basically hijacked a truck full of dirty laundry from a military base in Iraq, and it was basically all they could fit on one little, cruiser drive, and it was basically one soldier who was disgruntled. They basically just have sampled the tip of the iceberg. The WikiLeaks stuff that has come out is basically just the tip of the iceberg. It by itself, it was enough to cause, in fact, it helped collapse some of the governments in the Middle East, but it was nothing. They didn't really get the good stuff. They basically hijacked a load of dirty diapers.
As a member of the scientific community, John, do you believe there's a government conspiracy in place?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any evidence?
That is my belief. Yes, there is. Well, I don't believe we're alone in the universe.
What do you base your belief on?
Oh, you know what they say on Wall Street? They say those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. So I'm in the latter category. So I basically base this on being in Washington, D.C. for 15 years and working on space defense and just keeping my ear to the ground, picking up rumors from within the government as well as outside of it. And, I saw some UFOs when I was growing up in Oregon. It turns out one of the sources of UFO sightings was the fact that big jet bombers were actually refueling in midair over our town. They were carrying hydrogen bombs at the time, though we didn't know it. And there was a lot of, but I did see some classic flying saucers over Medford, Oregon, and they got reported in the paper. Everyone else saw them too. It was during this big swamp grass. It was about 1967. Big wave of UFO sightings. It was during that same week. So I convinced myself after watching these things through binoculars for about 10 minutes that this was represented technology, and it probably wasn't ours. Plus, as a scientist, I don't believe we're alone in the universe. And just as we traveled to the moon and back, and I honest to God believe we did that, by the way, other people would have been able to travel between star systems. So I don't believe we're alone. I don't believe we're the only people with space travel.
Why is it so important, John, that we go to Mars?
We must become spacefaring, Rob. The world is no longer the Earth. The world is the cosmos. And the human species must become spacefaring if it is to survive. I do believe that. For instance, if we had spotted an asteroid on a collision course with Earth, say 10 kilometers in diameter, about the size that wiped out the dinosaurs, if we had spotted that, say, 30 years ago, we probably wouldn't have been able to do much about it. Now we would be able to deflect it. In fact, that's what my novel 2012 Sepulveda asteroid is all about. But now we have been able to survive. We will survive such an event because of our space technology. But we have to do better than that. We have to become a multi-planet, multi-star species.
But isn't it going to take a long time for us to get to that point where we'll actually be able to go out and colonize space?
Rob, you are right, and that's why we should start today. I believe that developing space technology, and I'm not just talking about sending robots out through space, I'm talking about sending people. The more we do that, the better we are at that, the more the survival of this species, the chances of its survival is increased. We have just spoken of the possibility of a large nuclear explosion on Mars that may not have been natural. It may have been a giant nuclear weapon dropped for who knows what purpose. We don't want that happening around here. That happened 200 million years ago. Whoever did it is long gone. If it was unnatural, we don't want anybody like that coming around here and trying that again.
Well, let me ask you this at this point, John. If someone from another planet was to come here and attempt to detonate a nuclear weapon of the same magnitude that is believed to have exploded in midair on Mars, how would we stop them?
Oh, well, I'm not sure. You're speaking of a science fiction kind of scenario. I fortunately write science fiction, and it would be a very challenging and character building situation, Rob.
To say the least.
To say the least. One of the things about a very large hydrogen bomb as big as the Empire State Building is that those can actually be made to go off prematurely, way out in space.
Yes, but you see, what we're doing is we're using our present knowledge and putting that at the hands of people who are hundreds of thousands of years ahead of us.
Rob, interesting scenarios. I'll give you two interesting scenarios.
Okay.
The Spanish landed in Mexico, and Cortez was immediately given the gift of a beautiful Aztec princess who unaccountably had been sold into slavery to the coastal tribes by her own people. And she was given to him as a gift. She learned Spanish very quickly and explained to him that they were all awaiting a bearded, pale-skinned savior to come and deliver them from the Aztecs named Quetzalcoatl.
Right.
And Cortez was just a genius. Also, he had the best infantry in Europe. The Spanish infantry was the best trained, best equipped fighting men in Europe at the time. He had 800 of them, and he led basically the local Indian tribes in a revolt. And it was a near-run thing. The Aztecs could have easily pushed him into the sea if they had figured out what was going on early enough. Now, the Spanish then mounted an expedition across the Pacific and conquered the Philippines, which was dominated by Stone Age tribesmen. They took them about 2 years. They then decided to go north because they'd heard of this rich country called Japan. But when the Spanish went up to Japan, they discovered that this was not Mexico and it was not the Philippines. They discovered the samurai waiting for them on the beach. And the samurai, even though their weapons technology was more primitive than the Spanish, they had steel, they had horses, they were very organized, they were willing to fight to the death. And not only that, they had a few muskets. They had just learned about gunpowder a few years before the Spanish arrived. And that was enough, the fact that they were so far from Spain, and they were so warlike, and they had just enough military technology to prevent the Spanish from actually landing. That saved them from being conquered by the Spanish.
Okay.
So I'm just saying those are two scenarios from history. One was the Philippines and Mexico, and the other was Japan. And it was the same group of people, the same Spanish conquistadors who conquered Mexico. A lot of them were part of the Philippines expedition and the attempted attack on Japan, which never came off. So not only that, so I'm just saying time and circumstance have their role in everything. And the race is not always to the swift, Rob.
No, but when you've got a technology that's able to traverse time and space and the vastness of space, and then has the same technology to construct, detonate a bomb that we would estimate in our
well,
with our
actually,
present
Rob,
technology.
we could actually do that if we put our minds to it.
Listen, we can't even.
I'm sure there are some people. When I was in Washington D.C., I actually met some characters who were the models for Dr. Evil and the Austin Powers.
Yes, but here we've got a technology that can't even create alternative fuel to save the planet. I've got no faith in science.
Rob. It's
if the scientific community,
the human race is very paradoxical. It can make nuclear weapons of its own, but it can't create controlled nuclear fusion, which would solve the energy crisis.
If the scientific community would put the same brilliance into saving this planet as they do in destroying this planet, God, we'd all.
Then a lot of people would be out of business who are in business right now.
That's good. Then
oil
they could
companies,
get
for instance.
Hey, you're not going to hear me cry about that one.
I know it's. But one of the really nice things about having Canada as our nice neighbor to the north is you guys have all that tar sand, and that is really helping keep this country running right now with all this disruption from the Middle East.
All right,
and I'm getting out my bicycle, so I'm going to be biking to work as soon as the snow melts around here.
All right, John, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour.
Sure.
All right, so let's see, Cortez was given a beautiful princess virgin. I guess what we would do, what we would do is we would give them Monica Lewinsky. I give up. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario.
In over 36 years in law enforcement, I've learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, extraterrestrials, and UFOs, how we gather that evidence of their existence, preserve that same evidence, and present it to a court of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Come with me on a journey that seeks to prove with undisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Join me, Larry Lawson, host of the Paranormal Stakeout, coming to the X Zone Broadcast Network. Check out the broadcast schedule for Paranormal Stakeout with yours truly, Larry Lawson, at www.xzbn.net. For more information about me, my travels, and my team, check out our website at www.paranormalfbi.com or join us on Facebook at Florida Bureau of Paranormal.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Dr. John Brandenburg is my guest this hour, X Zone Nation. To find out more about John and his books, go to Amazon.com and simply put John Brandenburg in the search engine. John, if President Obama and the other world leaders were to hold an international press conference tomorrow at the United Nations and say, gang, listen, we've been studying the UFO phenomenon for years, and we've all come to one conclusion. There is no proof of the existence of extraterrestrials. Would anybody believe them?
I don't think so. I think people are... there'll be about 20% of the population that will believe them, and including some very cynical news types who would display deep suspicion of any statement from the government except on this subject. The On this subject, even the most hardened and cynical newspaper people I've discovered will display childlike gullibility because they don't want to know about the extraterrestrials. It frightens them.
Is it a fact that is it because it frightens them, or because the UFO community has never come up with any substantial evidence?
Well, you must remember that the U.S. government is are the people in charge of all the evidence. And we're people in the UFO community, and I'm a member of MUFON. We're basically sitting around at the back door of the White House, waiting for them to toss us a few crumbs occasionally. Just about everything we know that we think we know about the whole UFO situation is basically courtesy of the U.S. government through leaks, some of which are deliberate, and just the fact that human beings are blabbermouths.
Hey, John, I hate to do this, but we've run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure. Keep us in the loop of what's going on.
Always a great pleasure, Rob.
And
I hope I've been helpful.
You certainly have. Take care, my friend. Exonation, Dr. John Brandenburg has been my guest this hour. Visit Amazon.com for information on John as well as the books that he has. Simply put in John Brandenburg in the search engine. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario.